Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce. I am joined by myself, and I. It is a solo show here for me today on Father's Day. We'll start off there. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Hopefully, today was a beautiful day for all of you, and especially those that got to go to the ballpark today. Although a kind of a pathetic loss, and we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes, but a beautiful day nonetheless to be out at Wrigley Field. As always, welcome to Cubs on Tap. We're just going to dive right into this thing. There is no how are you today? How's everybody feeling? Because this series was exactly what the Cubs have done the last month plus now. The offense doesn't do enough to get it done. The starting pitching was great in all three of these games, and yet they couldn't get it done. A bunch of injuries now as well. We'll talk about that a little bit here toward the end of the show. But three coming up with the Giants, a team that they need to beat, and it's in the same situation as they were with the Cardinals, teams that are right around the same spot in the NL wildcard standings. But this series was frustrating. On Friday, a 3-0 loss with all the scoring coming from Pedro Pagas and his first homer of the season. He had two in this series. The other catcher, Ivan Herrera, in the top of the ninth, and Dylan Carlson finished it off. So Cubs trying to keep it a 1-0 game. Colton Brewer gives up two. That's how it gets closer. But Hayden Wesneski charged with the loss. He gave up the solo home run to Pagas. Unfortunate because Jordan Wicks was good until he got hurt after an inning and 2/3. Kyle Hendricks came in and pitched a really strong 4 1/3 against the Cardinals. Jordan Wicks now on the 15-day IL, and it was great to see. But the pitching did its job outside of Brewer getting beat up. They had a chance with Wisdom and his long fly ball, and the wind knocked it down. I don't know if anybody watched the game today, but 62 feet that ball lost because of the wind. I mean, it literally was the difference from it being a home run and not being a home run ball. Saturday's game was great, though. Was in the bleachers myself. I had some family in town over the weekend. We took in the Cubs' victory against the Cardinals. Ian Happ with a big 3-run bomb. Cubs had to manufacture some small ball runs early on as well. It wasn't pretty, but they got the job done. And Shota Imanaga was pretty special. And I think that's where this discussion needs to take a pause here, because Shota Imanaga continues to be the biggest bright spot for this Chicago Cubs team. We are plenty of the way through the season now. 189 ERA, 7 innings pitched, 4 hits given up on Saturday, just the 1 earned run. He didn't walk a soul, and 6 strikeouts, including the big K against Donovan to get out of the 7th and ultimately conclude his day. He's just a treat to watch pitch. Picks up his 7th win. The Cubs hum, I feel like, when he's on the mound, especially at Wrigley. There's just something different about it. You can tell he feeds off the energy of the crowd. And we'll talk about the comments after the game, right? He was just worried about what he was going to eat afterwards because he was hungry. Just continues to be a character, continues to be great. And a big home run from Ian Happ from the other side. And, Saturday's game, they hit. And like Christopher Cole says here in the comments, whenever the Cubs start hitting, look out. Yeah, they got the starting pitching. The bullpen really hasn't been that atrocious, especially recently. They just have a lot of guys beaten up and a lot of guys that are hurt. If this offense can find any stroke, and they don't have to be putting up 8 and 9 runs a game, but if they can consistently start putting up 4 and 5 runs a game, they're going to need a lot more ball games because they're keeping them low scoring. I mean, shit, the Cardinals scored 6 total runs in this series and beat the Cubs. The Cubs actually had the same number of runs. 6 runs scored, 5 of which came on Saturday. It just goes to show that this Cubs team can figure it out and start hitting. Things are going to be in good shape. Saturday was great. Sunday was not so much. A 2-1 loss. Pedro Pagas, once again, his 2-run homer was all the Cardinals needed to get the win. Unfortunate because Jameson Taillon was really good in this game. Again, 6 innings. It was a quality start from the big righty. 7 hits, 2 earned, 2 walks, 3 Ks, just the 1 long ball, the only damage against him. Drew Smiley was really good in 2 innings of work. And then Keegan Thompson looked good as well after just being recalled. He was recalled with Jordan Wicks going on the IL. And you look at the rest of it, and the Cubs didn't play that bad. And the Cardinals didn't beat the crap out of them. And the Cubs had chances on the base paths, and they couldn't get it done. And I think that's where things stand right now with this Cubs team. It's getting to the point where I'm sitting here tonight talking to everybody listening live, talking to you listening on a podcast, and it feels like deja vu. It feels like Groundhog's Day because it's the same song and dance every single series. They can't hit enough. The starting pitching's fantastic. And if they are losing games late, it's because the bullpen gives them up. It happened in the Tampa series. It happened in this Cardinals series. They managed a win in both of those series. The win on Saturday in this Cardinals series certainly more convincing, I think, than the win in Tampa on Wednesday night. But we sit here and we go, when is this team going to start hitting? Because you hear people, right, that'll be like, well, it's slumps and it's up and down. Yeah, that's great. But this team hasn't hit for 40 games, it feels like. At what point are they going to start hitting? And I don't know if anybody saw the stat, and Juice briefly mentioned it on our watch along and subsequent recap show on Thursday. Entering the weekend, if games ended after 7 innings, the Cubs would have almost 50 wins, or they would have pretty close to 50 wins. It's late game collapses. It's not hitting enough to feel comfortable late in games. It'd be one thing if this team's up 3 and 4-0 late in games and you give up a couple runs. Okay, your bullpen had a bad night. But when it's 2-0, 1-0 late in these games, and your bullpen has no margin of error, when it comes back and it bites these Cubs right in the ass. And that's exactly what happened in this series. Your pitching was really good. Wesneski makes one mistake. And the runs against Brewer, sure, whatever. Cubs still had a chance to do something and weren't able to. Disappointing, disheartening loss. But you see what happens when they do get really good pitching. And Tyson Miller was really good following up Shota. For those that did not see, Tyson Miller's been really, really good as a Chicago Cub. A guy that I think we would all like to see probably a little more of because of how good he's been. But he gets through it, shuts things down. Cubbies get out of it. Shota gets a big win. Just goes to show that 3-run home run from Ian Happ brought Wrigley Field to life on Saturday. Absolutely brought it to life. People felt good again. It was the first time they'd won a game by more than 2 runs, I believe, since the middle of May. It's crazy to think that this Cubs team just hasn't had the offense going to the point where a 5-1 win feels like an absolute just drumming of an opponent because there's so much room for error. And all of a sudden, you're like, wow, this team can beat people up by more than a run or more than 2 runs. It's in them. They just need to do it more consistently. And they had chances to do it on Saturday. I think that's what's so disheartening. Ian Happ has been really good overall, but he is able to beat out that infield single, gives Nico Horner a chance. 2 days in a row, Nico Horner with a chance with bases loaded and can't get anything done. It's getting really disheartening. It really is. Like I'm truly at a loss for words, and that's hard coming from me. Anybody that's listened to this show knows that is hard coming from me. Being at a loss of words, but just this Cubs team, it's the same song and dance. They should have won this series, plain and simple. Friday's game was whatever. But anybody that watched today's game, they had multiple opportunities to win this game. And if it wasn't for a home run that was very much aided by the wind, today was the first day of the series the wind was actually blowing out. They win the series. And all of a sudden we're sitting here going, okay, 35-37 looks a lot better than 34-38. 2 games below 500. You beat a division rival, which is absolutely something they have not been doing lately. And instead of being in last place right now in the standings, you're at least in what, third place? If they win this series and they win this game on Sunday? Right now they're at the bottom looking up. And they're only a game and a half out of the wild card. That's the craziest part of all this. For how terrible they've been playing. They're only a game and a half back of the wild card. But I think Jed's seat is starting to get a little warm. And I think it should. They need to do something. There needs to be some level of spark to this team. Whether that's an addition, whether that's whatever. But something needs to give. And I know there was a lot of reports of Alexander Canario was pulled from the Iowa Cubs game on Saturday, and there was no indication of injury or whatever. Everybody says, oh, he's on hug watch. But if you're Jed Hoyer and you want to make a statement right now, if you're able to go out and get a player that's going to help this team right now, and I know that's hard. I'm the first person to sit here and tell people that they need to be patient because a lot of teams just aren't willing to trade guys right now because of where the standings are. So many teams are still in it because of the wild card expansion. And because of that, less teams are going to be willing to sell off assets early. That being said, if the Cubs can pull a trade for a Pete Alonso, I think they need to do it because, like Christopher said, they need to shake up the lineup. What better way to shake up the lineup than adding another power bat to the lineup that's going to just naturally force guys into positions that they're not in? And I think Craig is trying to shake this lineup with what they currently have. We've seen Christopher Morel hitting in the 2-hole. I don't hate that. We saw him lead off a game in Tampa. Bellinger in the 3-hole has really been the only consistent thing that this team has had all year. Hap's been good in the 5-hole. I don't think he needs to be moved from that spot. But Nico Horner's not a 6-hitter. Dansby's been hitting low in the lineup. And you get nothing out of your catching position, so that's already an automatic out. This team would benefit from the addition of a guy like Pete Alonso right now. And I know there's people that are hoping it happens. They need to do something, though. Because I don't know if the answer right now is internal. I would love to see an Owen Casey get a shot. He's been probably one of the most consistent bats that's truly close to major league ready. But are they really going to give him an opportunity to do that? I don't know. I don't know if they are. And you take that a step further and you say, well, you're not going to, improve from within, then when are they going to make a trade? And I hope it is soon. And I think they need a bat. I'm not even worried about the relief pitching right now because anybody that saw the reports from just this past weekend now, there's a little bit of hope coming here for the starting or for the bullpen. Truly. Caleb Killian threw a bullpen. Julian Merriweather threw a bullpen. And Yency Almonte threw live BP, and he's back in Chicago awaiting what the next steps are in his recovery. Sure, we might not see most of these guys for another 2 weeks, but to get them back in July would be huge. A Caleb Killian right now would look phenomenal in this bullpen, as would Julian Merriweather, as would Yency Almonte, who was starting to really show that he could be something before he got hurt. We're probably not going to see Adbert Alzolay the rest of the year. I think he's done. I think he's just the injury is too much. But now you've Ben Brown out. Now you've Jordan Wicks out. Kyle Hendricks is back in the starting rotation as a result. They need to get this bullpen help back soon. But you need to start scoring runs too. And it might be time for Jed to rip the Band-Aid off and start using some of this minor league system to acquire proven, ready talent. They can afford to do it, even on a rental. I think you can afford to send an Alexander Canario and another prospect or two to New York for Pete Alonso and put that big thumper in this lineup and just pray to God that guys can get on in front of him and he can run into one every other game. Because right now it feels like that's all that's going to help them carry. And then maybe that one injection of heat into the lineup finally gets this team moving in the right direction. Maybe, just maybe. Because again, it's not even like the Cubs are finding new ways to lose. It's the same song and dance. They don't score enough runs. When the bullpen screws up, it's enough of a screw up to cost them games. And the starting pitching continues to be fantastic. So you got to fix one of the two areas there that are not working in your favor. And to me, right now, adding another bat is probably the easiest way to do it, especially when you have what should be some reinforcements in the form of bullpen help coming now as guys get healthy. Brandon B says, probably be better with the bat than any catcher on the roster. There's a lot of guys that probably be better than anybody. I'm right there with you. And that's what's so frustrating is it's coming down to the other 8 spots, and they're just not getting the job done right now. And unfortunately, there's probably no maybe an Elias Diaz if Jed wants to get really aggressive and go out and get a second rental for this year, and you bring a little bit of pop to that catching spot. I think it's possible. I don't think it's highly likely, but I think it's possible. And we'll just have to simply wait and see. I know it's only 17 minutes into this show. I am at a loss for words though, because it is the same song and dance with this team. And they have a chance to right their wrongs this week. 3 coming up now in San Francisco. We're going to talk about it. But they really, really, really need to win a series because they cannot continue to keep doing this and look the fan base in the eye and say, we're serious about competing in 2024. So we'll have to see. Brandon B says, this team has driven me nuts. He's checking into the insane asylum. Diaz is on the injured list. Yeah, I mean, fair. And again, I don't know if they're going to go after Diaz. I think they've probably checked in on him and maybe just don't want to pay the price. At least with a guy like Pete Alonso, you bring that into this team right now. It's something they don't have, which is just that hardcore thumper. But they're starting to drive me nuts too, Brandon. And it's funny because we were talking about this on the show on Thursday about like what hurts more, the 2019 collapse or this. And originally I was like, yeah, 2019 definitely hurts more. But after a full weekend now of the same song and dance, it might be this team. Because we were told that this was supposed to be a playoff team, that they have playoff expectations. And they are the farthest thing from that right now. They have a great starting staff. Their starting staff is by far beyond ready to, compete, be a competitive starting staff. They have a decent bullpen that has been riddled with injury, but the lineup just cannot hit right now. Guys are ice cold, and there's no search in sight. Couple more comments here. Darren says, same old story, same old song and dance. Totally sick of it. I'm right there with you, my friend. Brandon says, Mets are 11-5 since May 30th, the best record in baseball. They have been very good lately. I believe they are also undefeated since Grimace threw out the first pitch before their game. I think I saw that today as well. But it just goes to show, and the Mets are still relatively competitive. I think they're still going to sell off, though. I think they need a hardcore change of direction, and I think they're still committed to that idea of selling pieces. I don't think they're going to sell everybody, but they're going to sell expiring contracts. And I think Pete Alonso is going to be that's the fish that can fetch them the biggest return. So I do think they'll still end up moving him. But they have been good, and it's an 11-5 run like that, Brandon, that this Cubs team is in dire need of right now. And I don't know if it's coming in sight, but they have a chance to fix it tomorrow. So when you guys are probably listening to the show, it'll be in the evening. I will be at the game on Monday night. Very excited about that, as will Tyler, as I think will Juice. I think all three of us will be out at the ballpark. So do be on the lookout for plenty of Cubs content from the friendly confines on Monday night. Before we get to Monday night's game, I do want to check in with a couple of comments here. Brandon says Diaz from Tampa. I would love Yandy Diaz from Tampa. I think he could be a great addition. He's had a kind of a rough year by his standards because this is a guy that has hit 300 in his career, or at least damn close. But would also be a great addition, and he's an addition that's cost controlled. He's under contract. I think he has 3 more years of control. If it's not 3, it's at least 2 after this one. I think it's 2 after this one. He's got this year, he's got next year, and then I think it's a club option for the final year. So, yeah, he's 32, but he's a damn good ball player and would probably look really, really good on this team. Stolen says we couldn't do diddly poo offensively. Diddly poo is a good way to put it. Couldn't score runs, didn't try to score runs. The players did a horrible job. The coaches did a horrible job. It sucked. It stinked. Yeah, it stinked. It stunk. It was absolutely beautiful, or brutal, I should say. A beautiful, brutal segment. Brandon B says, agree. What's your record as a crew live stream from Wrigley? Our record actually at games this year is pretty good. Our watch along record is rather freaking horrendous, as we've noted and joked about multiple times. But I believe our in-person record together is quite good, actually. They won on opening day. They won the second game. So that was 2 wins. They won the last time all of us got together, which was the Busch walk-off win. The last time Tyler and I were at a game, they won. So they've actually done quite a bit of winning with us in the ballpark. It's just been the other stuff that hasn't been so good, in the form of a watch along. Brandon B says, find me something Tampa loves more than prospects. They have to love prospects because they don't spend a lot of money, because they can't justify to spend a lot of money because they're in a terrible location. If you ever want to hear a really good TED Talk from myself, it's on why the Tampa Bay Rays are not a successful team, and it has nothing to do with them playing in Tampa. It's the fact of where their stadium is located in that area of the country. Brandon B says, underrated season tickets as a business expense. If only. Hank says the team stopped hitting down the stretch last year. Jed did nothing in the offseason to improve that. He's not surprised that we're having the same results this year. And that's fair. I think in hindsight, it's we sit back and we look at this and we're like, son of a bitch. Why isn't this working? And it is largely the same thing. And last year, I think a lot of it was they got hot at the right time and they kept themselves alive until late in the season. And they were looking for kind of that spark and magic again. I just don't think it's come. So, they got to do something. And but we are going to go ahead and look ahead. San Francisco on the docket for 3 games this week. Jay asks, watch along Tuesday night or for Sunday night baseball next Sunday. Probably will not do a watch along for Sunday night baseball. We'll probably have a show following Sunday night baseball. But I do not believe we'll do a watch along for that. And I don't know what our watch along schedule looks like this week, because Tyler is in Chicago for most of this week. And we will be at the game tomorrow. So we will tweet out about watch alongs this week, but this might be a watch along less week for Cubs on Tap. That might finally be time that we take a week off and see if that helps change the fortunes of the Cubs, because we are piss poor in terms of record doing watch alongs. But let's look ahead. Monday's game, Giants are in the building. It's a 7:05 start. Jordan Hicks will be throwing for the Giants. He's actually been quite good for them, a 3.01 ERA on the season. And for the Cubbies, it will be Javier Assad and his 2.81 ERA for the boys. It's going to be a hot one at Wrigley. I fully expect the wind to be blowing out tomorrow night. God forbid this team could ever get the ball in the air. It would be great, but it certainly is going to favor somebody, and it just might not be the Cubs. Tuesday's game is actually going to be a good one. It's a battle of the aces. Logan Webb will throw for the Giants. 3.02 ERA. He's been really good on the year. And Justin Steele continues to lower that ERA. He's been really, really good over his last handful of starts. He's throwing on Tuesday. He has a 3.22 ERA on the season. And then Wednesday is a getaway day game. It's an early game. So the 1:20 start will feature Kyle Hendricks on the bump for the Cubs. He is the confirmed probable starter because of the injuries to Jordan Wicks, and Ben Brown. But San Francisco has yet to list their starting pitcher for Wednesday. So that is currently TBD. But tomorrow night, it will be Hicks versus Assad in the friendly confines. I just want to see the Cubs wipe everything clean and win a series. That's it. Keeping it simple, because Thursday is and even probably the most important off day this team's going to have, because they don't have to leave Chicago. And you get 2 full days of rest between first pitches, because Friday is a 1:20 start against the Mets when they come into town. Then you got a Saturday showdown with the Mets, and then Sunday night baseball against the Mets to finish up the series before the Cubs have to go out west and see these same Giants for 4 games out in the Bay Area. It will be ever important for the Cubs to get 3 wins this week and then just chill, take some time, breathe, enjoy a beautiful off day in Chicago on Thursday. The weather's going to be perfect. It's going to be a summer day in Chicago. The players can just escape from baseball for a day and then get back at it and try to win 3 games against the Mets next weekend. So hopefully the Cubbies just can find a way. They need to. It's desperate. If they're going to turn it around, they need to figure it out sooner than later. And I just don't know if that's going to happen. But would love to see what can happen from there. Darren says, save the bullpen for Wednesday. Maybe Hendricks can get 3 or 4. Hendricks went 4 1/3 on Friday. So, I mean, I think you can get at least 5 out of Hendricks, assuming that shit don't go south. Christopher Cole says Ray owner is the reason why they ain't winning. Stu is a joke. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that franchise. I've got pretty familiar with what's going on down there. Brandon said today Council got outmanaged. Miggy shouldn't have hit with 2 on. Morel shouldn't have hit with PCA on first. Then PCA should have been on third when Bellinger flew out, and it could have been a sac fly. Yeah, you would hope. I mean, unfortunately, there's not enough depth on this bench either, though, for them to feel comfortable, pinch hitting for a Miguel Amaya, right? There's no second catcher that's hitting better than he is that maybe you can pinch hit in that situation and can catch the last 2 innings. It's just, I just don't. Craig only has so much to work with, but you would have hoped he would do that. I mean, they played small ball over the course of the weekend to even make it a series. And you can tell, Craig's trying to get creative to truly get this team across the finish line. But we are on to San Francisco, 3-game set coming up this week at Wrigley Field. Again, myself, Kyler, and I believe Juice will all be in the bleachers tomorrow night. Do be following over at Cubs on Tap and see all the fun content and hooliganism that occurs on a Monday night in the Wrigley Field bleachers. As always, before we get out of here, Cubs on Tap 102 podcast here covering your Chicago Cubs. The Dingers folks will be live tomorrow night. Be sure to follow our boys over at the Dingers podcast at Dinger Cubs on the socials. You can watch them right here on the On Tap Sportsnet YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, hit that little bell button. You'll always know when all of our great shows go live. Follow them again, Dinger Cubs on the socials. We are at Cubbies on Tap. Be following us as well. I am at Loose on Tap. You know all the boys as well, at Nick_on Tap, Teddy Freddy 270 Juice on Tap, Joey Knows Nothing, and at Silent Bob _2. That is our boy, Mr. Bobby Foster. Bulls, Bears, Blackhawks. We got it all here. Blackhawks and Bulls have big offseason stuff coming up, and Bears season is not too far away. So be sure to tune in with those shows as well. And yes, Cubs fans, hey, we always joke it's been bad for us. It's been equally as bad for them. And I think we're all kind of feeling the same way. But you got friends that like the Southsiders, and so do we. Go ahead and send them over to our friends at Sox on Tap. Once again, ontapsportsnet.com, at ontapsportsnet on the socials. The OnTap Sports Network, go and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Only thing that makes it cubbable. And Darren says, go Cubs, score some runs. I tend to agree. Wishing everybody a great Sunday evening, and also wishing all the dads out there, once again, a happy Father's Day. Cubs Giants this week. We'll see you guys on Wednesday for sure with a show, and we'll communicate further on what might occur between now and then. From a content standpoint, as always, I am Ron Luce, wishing you all a great night. Fuck the Cardinals, and let's go Cubbies.